is it that I asked David, I said, is it Guinea-Bissau or Guinea-Conakry? David said it was Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Conakry. And I was like, Guinea-Conakry? And I did a little just quick search, Guinea-Conakry. And you will see all the cocaine stories about Guinea-Conakry. And someone now sent an article to me, and it was now then I was like, oh my goodness, this man has been going to Guinea as far back as 2015. In fact, he was the reason why I think the ousted president, that is President Kunde, that I think the military took him out. He was the reason why the man won his re-elections. Tinubu actually was the reason. And the article, there is a cable article. So when we say all these things, these are articles based on facts and figures. You can just hit up the internet and you see all these articles. A cable reporter, I think his name Afolayan or something. He had that discussion and he had that interview with Sunday Dare, Tinubu's media aide, and he was saying, "Oh, the president is actually Tinubu's brother and friend, and Tinubu went there to help him." And I'm looking at, I had to start. Has Tinubu gone to any other country in Africa to help the president win elections? And I could not see anyone. So what is special with Guinea? I was trying to wrap my head and I now saw David's article. Apparently, this man has a passport with a Guinea passport. So Bola Ahmed Tinubu family could be chilling in one side in Guinea. His real mother, his real father, his real siblings. Because for all we know, he's not a Tinubu. He is not a Tinubu. The real Tinubus have come out. The real ones, they know that this man does not represent us. He has used money to buy so many of us, but he does not. He has no ancestral trace to the name Tinubu. So for all we know, as we speak right now, this man could be one Guinean that has come to Max. That's why he can brazenly turn Lagos to a cesspool of corruption, a cesspool of thuggery, a cesspool of. He doesn't fucking love Nigeria. You can see it. So that's just my little own 2 cents, though. But I think I really want to hear more from David because yesterday I was already gasping for breath. We had a very long space with David and he just dropped the bomb. I want him to break it down for Nigerians here. And if you guys have questions, you have comments, you have done your own investigation, because one thing I love about this movement is that we have a whole lot of CIAs, FBIs, that are doing the Lord's work as we're speaking right now. People are digging in. I know people have dug in to get us more facts. Please. And if you're from Guinea here, please come and take your brother. We don't know this man. He's not Nigerian. We don't know him. We don't know his father. We don't know his parents. We don't know anything about him. He is not Nigerian. A Guinean cannot be a president of Nigeria. We cannot take it. Please come and take him to your country. Thank you very much. So please, Pels, it's nice hosting this with you. I see all of you on the speaker section. David, if you're not busy, please, you can help me out here. Please, I want you to just break that news one more time for Nigerians to understand. If you can tell us how you got that passport, better. If you're trying to protect your source, fine and good, but please help us break this and better for us here. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, first of all, I obviously cannot reveal how I got hold of this because protection of sources is always key. In fact, the reason I only publicize this now is precisely because I'm protecting the source. I've actually had this for a number of months, but because the source insisted that this might be traceable back to them, so I should basically wait for a specific period of time until something has happened before I put this out. So that's why I waited for this long to put it out. So no, I can't say where I got it from, unfortunately. However, I can confirm that it is a valid, legitimate document. And I think you've already seen Tinubu's people themselves indirectly confirm this. And I should also mention, I've been speaking to some of my colleagues in the media who have been trying to get across to the likes of Bayo Amanuga, Dele Alake since yesterday. And those guys have been dodging it. None of Tinubu's spokespersons want to touch it because they know, right? And which brings me to the subject of the article that I published in November. Now, it was basically last night that I discovered that even though 11,000 plus people retweeted it, and then the other times I posted it on Twitter, maybe like 7,000, 8,000 people retweeted it, it appears nobody actually read that article. And that makes me feel very disappointed because not just because of the amount of work that went into it, but because if you actually read the article, it will be so easy to understand that this person has no defense. Right? And it's precisely, it's very interesting to point out that while the likes of Keyamo, Alake, and Onanuga were, busy trying, bustling around, trying to defend their principal against the drug trafficking thing, which obviously in itself is a historical fact. There's a U.S. court judgment there. You can't get around that. But while they were engaging in that, this particular story about perjury, they completely sidestepped it. And it's not because they weren't aware of it. It's not because they didn't read it, but it's because this was the story that they have no defense against. There is no English you want to speak. So I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but really, like, the least people can do is just read the story, right? This is not even, by the standards of the stories I usually do, this is not even a long story. Right? Usually I do long reads, like 6,000 to 8,000 words, and it takes me months to put them together. This particular story was like, it was a breaking news story almost, because it was the day that I got hold of the documents that I wrote the story and I published it. So by my standards, it was like a very short story. I think it was like 2,000 words or something. It's not a long story at all. You can sit down and finish it in 10 minutes. So it's not the length is nothing intimidating. What makes that story so important is the receipts that are contained in the story, because I was lucky enough to be the journalist that was collaborating with the lawyer that Pels mentioned earlier, Mike Anahoro. So basically, when all these documents came to, and I should also mention, interestingly, that when he submitted the criminal complaint, which was mentioned in the story, because he basically submitted the criminal complaints at the FCT High Court against Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And then all the judges in the FCT basically started running away from it. No judge will touch it. Until now, that case remains in limbo in Abuja because everybody's afraid to be the judge that puts their name on it. Right? Because it's such an open and short case, but because of the person who is involved and the person whose career will be destroyed if a judge takes charge of the case, every judge has basically sidestepped it because there's no technicality you want to use. There's no way to subvert this case. It's one of those rare cases which is just open and shut. It doesn't matter whether I carry this case to China or Iran, or North Korea, it's the same verdict you'll get because it's very, very open and shut, right? The lawyers did their job very well. I did my job very well. There's just no way to get around it. So these guys have completely refused to engage with it. And it's very telling that since I put out the added angle, which was the fact that he also happens to have Guinean citizenship, after claiming on his EC9 declaration that he has no supplementary citizenship apart from Nigeria, which constitutes perjury, lying on that oath. They have been dodging all the media, my colleagues in the media, all the journalists that have been reaching out to them. So up till now, I was speaking to someone just a few minutes ago, I'm not going to mention his name. He's been reaching out to Dela Lake and Bayo since yesterday. People who normally they're always firing off statements. There's always a statement, there's always a tweet, very loquacious, loud-mouthed people. They've had absolutely nothing to say, radio silence. And I suspect that's going to continue because that's exactly what they did in November. When this story came out, they completely aired it out, complete radio silence because there is no defense. So again, I remember I was on my WhatsApp status last night and I was having a bit of a moan, like I was having a bit of a tantrum, and I'm going to read out what I wrote on my status. So I said, I just realized tonight that nobody actually read this story. 11,000 plus people retweeted it, but nobody actually read it. I'm only one man at the end of the day. Because of trying to democratize information, I've become a journalist, researcher, private investigator, creative writer and storyteller, graphic artist, audiovisual editor, documentary maker, web content creator, and social media marketing specialist. But I sure cannot break people's heads and force the information in. I do all of that on a budget of about 50p and a pack of chips. I still subsidize my work with my own personal money. And I even leave West Africa Weekly open to non-subscribers and essentially run my subscriptions as a gifting model. The least I would hope and expect is for people to at least read what I've gone through so much trouble to present. That's like the little rant I had on my WhatsApp status last night. And I think I still feel that way because this, in my opinion, was an even more open and shut case than than even the drug trafficking angle, even though there's actually a court judgment in that one, which potentially makes it, already airtight. But in this case, the sheer amount of evidence and then the sheer sloppiness of Tinubu and his people who are involved in this, the fact that the forgery that they submitted was such a poor forgery, and it was so easy to identify where the forgery came from. It was so easy to identify. Like I there's actually a link in the story where you can actually see the website where the forgery comes from. Where it's called diplomamakers.com. That's diploma-makers.com. You go there and you will see the exact template with the same grammatical errors and everything, and that's what this man submitted to INEC. There is no defense against it, basically. So I'm to be honest, I'm really not sure how I feel about the fact that I published this thing in November and it's in April that people are just realizing that that this thing existed. Like, it makes me feel sometimes like the work I do is maybe like it's a bit of a waste of my time, because I mean, a lot of hard work has gone into this. I spent my own personal money on this. There's been a lot of running around, in addition to the help that came from obviously the lawyers who were involved and the American law firm Lee, Eisenberg, and Franco. I've also done a lot of running around on my own. There has been a lot of, I mean, thank goodness for PayPal, because there has been a lot of, you have to pay $82 to get access to some repository or some, pay a filing fee in some court district, because, this man has cases all over the place. Some of them are open, some of them are sealed. There's a lot, and this has been my life for the past few months, or for the past year, really. So I just feel as if after all of that, the least people could do is at least read the story. So realizing now that most people actually didn't read the story until last night, that I really don't know what to make of that, to be honest.
Honestly, David, I will not. I will understand how you feel when you put in so much work into something and people do not get to how do I put it, to not patronize, to really check out and see what you have done here. But I also understand that in the midst of everything that was happening last year, there were so many distractions. There were so many distractions going on, as in last year, in the midst of this whole electionary process. So I can also say, okay, plus this man is a bag of how do I put it now? Bag of how I'm trying to find the right English here right now. The man has his baggage is just too much. So when you bring in this one, next week there's something else, then next week there's something else. You just keep piling up, and there's nothing good coming out from the man. Everything about the man is bad. Everything. So you just have to understand that mentally Nigerians are not yet mature to that point whereby we cannot be getting all this news. I have not even digested the fact that the fucking drug dealer is about to be the next president of Nigeria. I cannot. Then you now wake up and say that same drug dealer has no father, has no mother. He has like 3 different age. He said he's a black American. He said he's a Nigerian. You now see that he has a Guinean passport. The processing level of Nigerians, it is too much for us, honestly. It is too much for us. So I hope this can console you to understand why so many people did not jump on the news. And it's never too late. We now know. At least we know. So that's just my own 2 cents, though. I think I'll allow people come into the conversation right now. Let's allow people respond to you, ask you questions if they have to, and we'll keep the conversation rolling. All right. Please, guys, if you're up on the platform, I don't know how Pearls do it here, but me, I think to have orderly conversations, I think people should please do us a favor. If you want to speak, let me just call people by names. Plenty people there. Abi Pearls, do you want to do that on yourself?
No, Saddam, go ahead. So anybody that wants to speak can raise their hands, right? Is that how you want to do it?
I think that's
okay, sure. Please go ahead.
All right, I think Dr. Jeffrey can come in here, please.
Thank you very much. I don't want to take too much time, but David, I respect so much your journalism, and my questions are just because of my confusion. So if I could just ask you, I have 4 quick questions. First of all, yes or no, is dual citizenship allowed? Are you allowed to have dual citizenship and be president of Nigeria? That's my first question. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. I think you can ask all your questions, then he probably will take all of them together.
Yeah, David, or anybody, from my own knowledge, is a Nigerian allowed to have dual citizenship and be president?
No.
Okay. Number two, why did he seek and I believe attain citizenship in Guinea? Why? Do we know that?
Please, can you ask that question again? I didn't get that.
Why did Tinubu get citizenship in Guinea? Why would he want to do that? Or is that just, was he born there? What is the reason he has this citizenship?
Dr. Jeffrey, honestly, on that question now, I think I don't think I can answer this question because honestly, nobody knows. That's what we're about to find out. This man has, as we stand now, I think you can find out that you see that this man has probably 5 more citizenships, probably in Colombia, in Cuba, in Mexico, where they do all those kind of illicit trades. Probably you will never know. You will never know something like that.
Okay, my final question then, and I really appreciate it. And this is not an interrogation. We're all on the same side, and again, I love David's work. Is it true that he said he did not have citizenship in any other country when on his application for president, and therefore that's perjury, and that is grounds for disqualification? Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This, the case of Tinubu gets worse and worse every day. That's all I want to say. And I want to thank you, David, for your journalism. And Pearls, thank you for getting this space going. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey. Thank you. All right, let me bring in Tony. You have the space now, please. Good evening, guys. Let's try to keep us. I'm sorry, please. Another thing, we're trying to trend the hashtag Bola Tinubu committed perjury. So please, if you guys can make tweets for us with the hashtag Bola Tinubu committed perjury, it will go a long way. Thank you. All right, guys, let's get to the conversation. Tony, you have the space, please. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Sada. Thank you so very much. David, first of all, I want to say a big thank you for all you've been doing. Now, in the interest of time, I see Doja raising up his hands. I suspect he is probably going to answer my question when he speaks. So I will yield for now and allow Doja to go ahead. So just in the interest of time, okay? So I'll just drop to the listener section and wait for his submission. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Doja, you have the space, please go on.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's very good to be on here. First of all, with respect to the question that Dr. Jeffrey asked, that is a Nigerian president allowed to hold dual citizenship? Well, it's going to be, a bit of a long ride, so I'll just advise everyone, pay attention. First things first, the Nigerian Constitution doesn't allow it. There is a part of the Nigerian Constitution, I'll fish out the exact section now, but I think the section for governorship is 182. For the presidency, I'll pick out the exact section now. I'll just bring it out. But what it states essentially is that you are not allowed to have dual citizenship. You are not allowed to swear an oath of allegiance to another country. So what I'll say that this section of Constitution emphasizes is that it emphasizes the fact that you can be born in another country to Nigerian parents and have citizenship acquired by birth. Now, being born in another country and having citizenship acquired by birth cannot take away your rights as a Nigerian citizen if your parents are Nigerians, as contained in the Nigerian Constitution. Because once your parents are Nigerians, you're also Nigerians. You're also Nigerian. But what the Constitution frowns against, or what it is against, in the true sense of the word, is it doesn't want a scenario whereby when you naturalize, you then acquire a new citizenship. And when you naturalize, no matter what country you're naturalizing to. Once you scrutinize the oath of allegiance, I mean, I've seen the oath of allegiance of the United States. I've seen the one for the UK. It requires you to renounce your previous citizenship. And then your allegiance is now to the new country you've naturalized to. So in this particular scenario, at least from what I can see, it would appear that this is citizenship, by naturalization, because Bola Ahmed Tinubu wasn't born in Guinea. Now, the second part of it, which seems very interesting, is the fact that after you've naturalized...
Sorry, Doja, can you hear me?
Nigerian... Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I want to ask you a question. Where was Bola Ahmed Tinubu born?
Oh, to the best of, the best of information available says that he was born in Iragbiji, Osun State.
Which hospital?
We don't know the hospital, but it was the best of information available also suggests that he was born under another name. So perhaps if we know his other name, we can confirm that.
Go on, please.
Okay. So if we now want to look at legal authorities on that matter, now previously, what I mean by previously it had been believed that once you are born, that is, you acquire your citizenship by birth, that your acquisition of citizenship by birth, nothing can take it away from you, even if you naturalize into another country. And the problem we have with Nigeria is that Nigerian jurisprudence and the judicial authorities in Nigeria, sometimes they try to turn logic on its head. In scenarios where the constitution is clear on something, what they try to do is they try to turn logic on its head and try to find another provision of the constitution that completes it. And our constitution doesn't help matters because those who drafted it as well, it's almost like every single time they were drafting something, they were putting a loophole somewhere that somebody else could exploit. So they were not very specific on some of those provisions and which one would trump which. So they gave the courts a wide range of powers, to be able to exploit the situation as they deem fit. So what we've seen happening from this dual citizenship is that we've had different cases. We've had a case go up to the Court of Appeal level whereby a man in the House of Representatives was removed for having possessed dual citizenship. We've also had another case, the case of Senator Ogbia, where he was taken all the way to Supreme Court level, and it was decided that nothing can take away your citizenship by birth. That is, your citizenship by birth is inalienable. So once you've gotten that citizenship by birth, and the Constitution says part of the requirement, you must have been born a Nigerian citizen, nothing can take it away. Now, this is the very interesting part. The very interesting part is that, you see, a lot of people erroneously believe that judicial authority on citizenship by birth or dual citizenship ends at the Court of Appeal. And that's why I said it's the interesting part. You see, when you go to the law court to prove cases and you are proving based on judicial precedents, it's based on your knowledge of the law. It's what you plead that the court will grant. It's what you are saying essentially that you're asking the court for, that the court will give you. It's the authorities that you are pleading that the court will examine and use in judging your case. So that's why they say that a good lawyer is one who can defend you and all, but a very great lawyer is one who knows the law and doesn't know the law but knows where to find it. So you know where to find law. Essentially, there are two Supreme Court authorities on citizenship, and those two Supreme Court authorities essentially say that they essentially confirm the section of the Constitution that says you mustn't have a dual citizenship and you mustn't have sworn an oath of allegiance to another country. And one of those Supreme Court authorities is Marwa versus Inyako, where it was stated word for word that provision of the Constitution that states that you mustn't have dual nationality and you mustn't have pledged your allegiance to another country. Then there's another case that went all the way to the Supreme Court, Senator Onwa versus, I can't remember the other party, that also, affirmed that same provision of the Supreme Court. They also affirmed that same provision of the Constitution. So essentially, nobody has quoted this because it has always been in obscurity. It has been in darkness. Those cases are not celebrated cases. So lawyers have not been diligent enough to dig up those cases. But one of those cases is, as recent as 2012, where that was where the Supreme Court granted that. So moving into how does this affect everything that is going on? Because you have to tie it in essentially. If the Supreme Court is saying that you can't hold dual nationality, there's a reason behind it. The reason behind it is that if you're the president of a country, it is expected that you're going to have access to national security, sensitive data, and all those other things. And for one who wants to lead a country, the country must come first. And it is unimaginable that you would have loyalty to another country, that you then might leak top national security secrets too, and you might leak a whole lot of other things too. So, you have to be able to understand and then put this into perspective as to why is it that the constitution does not want dual citizenship, both for governors and for presidents. But unfortunately, the whole idea of this dual citizenship is it is voidable. Voidable means that if you're a dual citizen and nobody raises it, nobody takes it up against you, none of your opponents find it fit to bring it into perspective. Whenever it is you go to court or to bring it to the attention of the court, then it means that you can get away with it. And we've had people who have gotten away with it. We've had several governors in Nigeria who have been dual citizens by virtue of naturalization, have gotten away with it. They carry it on top of their head, and many of them hawk that court of appeal judgment saying, or that's in Senator Ogbia's case, saying that my citizenship by birth cannot be removable. It's not removable. It's not renounceable. So they've been taking that and using that as an excuse. And you have people who are even bold enough, to go ahead and even fill it in forms. And when I mean forms, electoral forms, to say, yes, I'm a dual citizen. It's almost like nothing is going to happen. So now, if you now want to look at it very well, understand that actually how this really is going to affect things. The question is the knowledge of this dual citizenship of Tinubu. First of all, I have a few clarifications which I would obviously like. There are a few things I'd like David to clarify, but I'm going to get there. But on the basis of the facts available, this new knowledge, you have to ask the question: can anybody bring it up? I think the answer is, at this point, if any of the presidential aspirants did not have it before they filed their election petition cases, at this point it's a bit late to say they are going to plead it. Because to the best of my knowledge, based on the law does not allow you to introduce any new facts after you filed. I don't think it's good, but that's how the law is. And the law there's no morality when it comes to law. The law is just the law. It is what it is. So they can't introduce a new fact to say, oh, this man is a dual citizen, and then we're trying to introduce a new fact. The law won't allow them to do it. Anything they've not pleaded already in their election petitions, they can't bring it forward at this point in time. Then, as to the clarification I'll need from David, I think my clarification essentially boils down to, I looked at the passports, and when I saw the nationality, it stated Guinean. That's what it stated. And to the best of my knowledge, at least my limited knowledge of French, Guinean seems to refer to, it's a feminine use. It's almost like it's a feminine term. So, I'll need some clarification as to the fact that those who are Guinean, that are citizens of Guinea, or is it Guinea Conakry, whichever one applies, is that the common term they use? Or is it that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a transgender, which means he's constantly using female terms, to classify, female terms to classify himself, or even to the extent that even the passports, international passports that are being issued to him are being issued using female terms? Is there something to it? Could it be, is there something bigger, about it? It's very good to clarify these things, because if you want it to stand under scrutiny, it's good to clarify that particular area. And, coming from my own discipline, which is law, evidence must be able to stand under scrutiny. So I think that's pretty much my take on it. And that's the clarification I'll be needing David to make. The Constitution is very clear. The intent of the drafters of the Constitution is clear on dual citizenship. Can they use this against Bola Ahmed Tinubu? I do not know. Perhaps if any of the presidential aspirants had mentioned, based on David's previous article where it showed that in the identity he stole in the US was a Black American, and in addition to that, the identity he stole being a Black American was a female. If somebody had mentioned something about he being a dual citizen, they can also slot this in. If I look at Atiku Abubakar's petition, he mentioned in the part that and other documents, and he wasn't very specific on the fact that he's not qualified. So we don't know what he's going to put in his written address. We don't know the surprises that he has in stock. So we are only going to have to wait, to see the written address. We've seen the witness statements on oaths essentially. So is there a way around this? To the best of my knowledge, just a very small window. Right now, as it is, it's going to be like a moral issue, except they find a way, to insert it into those election petitions. That's the only way, they can then use. And then the whole thing now brings to the, it brings to the fore the fact that there is also another principle where the Supreme Court can depart from its own judgments. Notoriously, we've seen the Nigerian Supreme Court bend the laws when it sees it as suitable. Will the Supreme Court rise up to the occasion and enforce the will of the drafters of the Constitution and, follow the principle of stare decisis, which is they will follow their own precedents? Or will they now try to, come up with another precedent? It's also important to know that this issue of dual nationality, in this current electoral cycle, Senator Sandy Ono, I think that was the Cross River PDP gubernatorial aspirant. Sandy Ono, the PDP gubernatorial aspirant, was taken to court on account of dual nationality. The case was decided based on the Court of Appeal judgment that was known to everybody. But the Supreme Court judgments, which are not known to everybody, this electoral cycle, we're bringing them out. When it comes out, it's going to be shocking, even to those, who are involved. And like I said, we have quite a number of Nigerian governors that are guilty of this. So it's going to be very interesting. And that's my submission. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Doja. Thank you. I think let's keep, guys. If you're up on the platform and you have a submission or questions, please your hands should be up so that we can have an orderly room here. Thank you. All right, MJ Stark, you have the space, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Saddam. Good evening, David. Good evening, everyone. I greet you all. Thank you very much, Doja. That was a very detailed submission. Yeah, basically, what I would like to say is, I'm not sure about this, but from my understanding, if we cannot pursue this legally as to him having dual citizenship, how about on the ground of perjury? Because he has already perjured himself by saying he does not have any other citizenship. So I think that should also be a legal loophole from where it can be pursued. And the citizenship then would be used as the evidence of the perjury he committed, alongside other things he has already done. But I would like to, take our time to thank David for the work he has been doing. Actually, this news, he broke it as far back as November last year, but I don't think many people paid attention to that. Also due to the fact that there was no evidence on ground at the time. But personally, whenever I see any information that has been put out by David, I absolutely do not doubt it, because whatever I see from David, I'm certain that he has taken his time to actually verify it and make sure that it's accurate. So it's not a case of saying if that is the case. We know it's the case. Once David says it, that is the way it is. That is how much trust I have in that young man. And going forward, I believe that we've seen that this guy, he has not, I can't even understand how, as a country, we have gotten to this point where people with this sort of characters, highly questionable character, there is not a single thing about Bola Ahmed Tinubu that anybody on this space, can say for a fact. Of course, other than the atrocities he has committed, I'm talking about his actual name, his age, his parents, his place of birth, state of origin. There is just he's just a mystery. Nobody really knows this man. Now, if you look at the form he submitted to INEC, that is the EC89, if I'm not mistaken, you will find out that he didn't even fill vital informations. My question now is, as a country, does it mean that there is no organization, the INEC, they're supposedly independent, so that means that nobody's actually checking what they're doing? So if INEC saw all of these red flags, they saw all of this, there were no dates in what he filled, no time, no timestamps, nothing. And they accepted this form. They could not ask him, why is it this way, to fix it? And they knew and they accepted it. So right now, that means that INEC, it's not just an accomplice in rigging the election. They have been an accomplice all along. Because he shouldn't even have been able to contest for that election in the first place. So my question right now, it's the same like that of Doja. I would like to know if it is too late, to bring up this particular argument or case of the dual citizenship. And even worst of all, this is a diplomatic passport. Do you understand what that means? It means that he's basically, he has the authority to act in the interest of Guinea. And this is also a known drug trafficking hub in West Africa, the biggest one. So if we're connecting the dots, it's just too obvious. So my question is, if we cannot pursue this particular aspect legally, like Doja implied, is it possible that it could be used in the perjury case? Because I believe there is a mention of perjury somewhere in the LP case files. It was not joined in the prayers, but it was mentioned there at least. So can this be used as a sort of evidence to prove that yet again he has perjured himself? Can we toe that line? Is it possible? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if this question is for Doja. Doja, I think I'll leave you up here for people that have on the legal angle, because some people might want to ask some questions that has to do with legality, and I think you could weigh in there. But if any question is direct to David has the honors of doing that. All right, guys, please one more time. I think Sir Babatunde Badamosi, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you.
Welcome, sir. So your respected senior brother have come again. He has done another one, sir. So I don't know if you want to tell us there's something you want to tell us about him, sir. You have this space, sir. Go on.
Well, I don't think that there is much more that needs to be said, considering all that has been revealed by David Nde's investigations. However, I want to ask this.
So is he speaking? Because I can't hear anything.
Yeah, he's speaking.
I can hear you now, Pearl. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go on. But I don't think Pearl can hear you.
Pearl, can you hear me?
She cannot hear you. Pearl, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear Saddam and David, but I can't hear Sir Babatunde. But it's okay.
I think he should just go ahead, and then when he's done, we'll tell you. You can't drop because you're hosting the space, unfortunately.
Right, I was saying, there isn't much to add other than, let me say one thing, and of course one has to be circumspect about this. Somebody very influential at the time in another West African country told me that during the election in that country, which was stalemated at the time, one of the contestants in that election reached out to the then sitting president of Nigeria, and he was ignored. So that person, who, like I said, was very influential, reached out to a certain somebody that we all know. And our certain somebody sent out a private jet belonging to an oil company in which he had substantial interests, literally with bags and bags of dollars. Millions of dollars was sent to said candidate, and in the runoff, he won the election. And so when our friend turned up in the country, he was given a presidential welcome at the airport. And he was treated like royalty throughout the life of that presidency. I think the president in question eventually died and was replaced by somebody else. But I believe our friend retained his influence in that country. And, that's something that perhaps needs to be looked into, because now we're looking at a web of countries. We've got Guinea, we've got Gambia, and I can tell you about Equatorial Guinea as well, especially for the incumbent president of Nigeria. Yeah, where apparently he salted quite a bit away himself and some allies. And I suspect that one of those allies would be our friend. Have salted quite a bit away in that country. Nigeria's presidential jet apparently is used to fly the president of Equatorial Guinea up and down the place, United Nations meetings and such other things. What has been unveiled, as far as I can see, is an international web of criminality within West Africa, controlled. There wasn't control initially, but it appears that it's been controlled from Nigeria, and there are two. How would I say? There are two bases on which these empires have been built. There are two parallel empires. One is a tribal empire, an ethnic empire, and the other is a crime empire. And both are being controlled from Nigeria. So I don't know. We have a lot of work to do. We can't afford a situation where somebody becomes Nigerian president and suddenly Nigerians are no longer as Nigerian as Guineans or Equatorial Guineans or Gambians for that matter. I yield the mic at this point.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. All right, Dr. Lu, you have the space now. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Saddam, David, and Pels, and everybody on this section. Well, it's a kind of a new dimension, and in collaboration with what we were discussing yesterday regarding the fact that we have a Tinubu person that is full of baggages upon baggages, a lot of things unveiling every blessed day. In as much as, before I give my submission, I just want to remind us that one, we should continue to remain focused, remain determined. We should not be discouraged, or we should not be swayed about the previous news in terms of the River State stuff. The idea remain, continue to remind ourselves of why we are in the tribunal. My own question is, the issue of Tinubu dual citizenship, is it that when is it a new development per se prior to when he became the governor of Lagos State, or is just that it is just a new thing? That's one. Secondly, what is the overall implication of the form he filled when he was submitting his form to INEC? What is the implication by at least attesting to the fact that he is not he has no any allegiance to any other country? Because obviously from that form he tick no. What is the implication? And is it possible for anybody, whether you are not a PDP person or a Labour Party person, to individually sue him to court on that account, since if it is not something we can use as part of our electoral tribunal case, can somebody or a body can just sue him like this person is can it also stand as a way of disqualifying him? Just like that's just my question. Like, can I, for example, sue him on that account that you have two citizenship? Can he actually also have a way of disqualifying him in the future? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think, Donja, if you want to answer that question, please, you can go on.
Okay, yes, I would answer his question. So the thing is, can anybody sue him? The answer is yes. Anybody can sue him. But the problem you're going to have is that no matter who tries to sue him right now, because he's president-elect, they will full drag until he becomes president, and then they'll go and plead immunity. And once they plead immunity, game over. You can't do anything until he's out of that presidential office. So can anyone sue him? Yes, but you are going to be handicapped by the immunity clause provided in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for presidents and governors. So that's the issue. And if you remember, David mentioned that there's a case That is a straightforward case. I mean, currently pending that every judge has refused to touch. You see, that's part of what they call buying time. He's buying time so that once he's in there, you see, once he becomes president, the only people who can sue him are those who are suing and coming, pre-election matters. That's cases that concern the election, cases that contest and that concern his eligibility that have been in courts before he was elected, or he was sworn in as president. Those are the only cases. You won't be able to go against him, even for a criminal matter, because you'll be able to plead immunity. In fact, we've seen immunity being pleaded in ridiculous matters. Very recently, the governor of Lagos State, somebody asked him to do a DNA test. That's a paternity test, and he pleaded immunity. So that's how ridiculous, the immunity clause can be. That's how ridiculous the deployment of the immunity clause has been. Then there is a clarification I want to quickly make. With respect to my earlier submission, I had asked David for a clarification, and somebody here kindly has provided that clarification, which I have cross-checked and I'm satisfied with. I was asking about the feminine term, Guinea. And the person explained that in French, that the country is seen as a female, and that based on that, it's actually the correct term to say that okay, they are Guinea. So I think I would say it's in order, and based on that, it's something I always say: we learn every day, and the greatest minds are minds that can learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I've learned something new here as well. From somebody else, who just messaged me to clarify that to me and told me, the person actually resides in a French country, and explained and broke it down to me that in France, this is how it works, that in French countries, this is how it works, and this is how the nationality thing works. So I think everything is in order. That evidence would obviously stand under scrutiny. So then I don't know I don't know if there's any other question that I've skipped over, but if there is, please bring it to my attention so I'll just address it as quickly as possible.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Pearl's coming.
Yeah, so sorry, Saddam, before you go ahead. So someone is in my DM saying the electoral law states clearly that only an aspirant that actually participated in the APC primaries or a political party that participated in the presidential elections can actually sue Tinubu for the certificate and perjury. So I don't know if you want to clarify that, Doja.
Yes, I would go ahead to clarify that. So you see, this particular issue of the electoral law, that booby trap provision in the electoral law, is something I have mentioned before, but I'm going to mention again for the benefit of everyone here. You see, Tinubu's bid to become president did not start today. And just like criminal organizations, when they are trying to carry out a heist, I'm sure many of us have watched movies: Ocean 11, Ocean 12, Ocean 13, Italian Job. What you would notice there is that there's always a lot of planning that goes into a lot of planning that goes into that process of organizing that heist. Now, for Tinubu, one of the most important things with respect to that heist was this Speaker of the National Assembly, Femi Gbajabiamila. You see, with respect to when they were putting together the current Electoral Act, in the previous Electoral Act, there was a right that Nigerians had. That right was a right to sue any representative and sue them if they are lacking in qualifications or you believe they are not qualified. Every Nigerian had the locus to go to courts to go and sue. But when they were doing this new Electoral Act, on the basis of the fact that they were just all about electronic voting, it's almost like they pulled the wool over our eyes. So the Electoral Act wasn't put to enough scrutiny. And then they were able to put in a lot of those provisions to protect their principal, who they knew was deficient in those areas. So that clause saying that only somebody that contested you in a primary, it's a very bad clause. And it's a clause that was put there by Tinubu's boys and henchmen to protect him because they knew he was deficient. And you say, when you are deficient, anybody in the country from anywhere, you would have had a deluge of court cases, people going to say this man is not qualified. So they put that clause to protect him, knowing fully well that when it comes to party matters is always like a family affair. If there are just 3, 4 people, you can always reach out to them, strike a deal, and get them, to be on your side and all that. And as we've seen, no single aspirant from his party has come out to challenge his qualifications, and that's because it's what we call in Yoruba, they call it parapoism. That's what happens in political parties. At the end of the day, after they are done, they strike deals and all that, and then they let that slide. But you see, the point of this is that clause is enough to protect them under the Electoral Act. But the Electoral Act is a subsidiary legislation to the Constitution. The Constitution is the ground norm. Now, what does the Constitution say? No matter what kind of Electoral Act you promulgate, it can never erase provisions of the Constitution or take away locus that is granted by the Constitution. So where am I going with that? Where I'm going with that is that there are constitutional requirements, and those constitutional requirements can never be subsidiary to the Electoral Act. And those constitutional requirements, the locus for them, it arises for those political parties or candidates that have contested against them in the election at the petition tribunal. Now, if you go through the election petition tribunal, so if you go through the Electoral Act, there are several grounds for coming against a candidate. I mean, when you are writing your election petition, there are several grounds. One of those grounds is grounds of disqualification, that the candidate was never qualified in the first place to contest that election. Now, what does this mean? That ground essentially means that the candidacy of any candidate who contests in any election in Nigeria is voidable if the other candidate can prove that he wasn't qualified to contest that election. But you see, the locus for that does not arise before the election. It only arises after yourself and the other candidates have participated in an election and you are contesting the results of that election. So that locus that they try to suppress at the primary stage has arisen for Atiku Abubakar, for Peter Obi, for Kwankwaso, and every other presidential aspirant that contested the election against him. So while the Electoral Act is restraining, it's not going to allow them literally, and based on case law and precedents that has gone all the way to Supreme Court, they cannot be poking their noses into what happens, in the political party's nomination process that has been determined, to be internal affairs of a political party. They can go to the heart of his qualification and say, see, my lordships, this man is not qualified to hold the office of the president according to the Constitution. So they can bring constitutional qualifications if he does not meet them and bring it to the attention of the courts. So in this particular scenario, several things that probably could not have been contested at that primary stage and that they took away from Nigeria, and that right that we had, that they brazenly took away, those people that contested the election with him are now the only ones that have the locus to bring it to the attention of the courts, which, as you've seen, Peter Obi has so graciously done by mentioning that he's been convicted. Sorry, not convicted, that he's been fined and, for laundering money, that were proceeds of narcotics, which was widely reported, by David, and which, if you see, Atiku has also mentioned that he wasn't qualified. So those constitutional qualifications, if he does not meet them, it can be raised. And one of those things that, this particular issue of dual nationality falls under constitutional qualification. Apart from that, his qualification, presentation of forged certificates is also a constitutional qualification. If you present a forged certificate to INEC, it disqualifies you from being president. There are some other, there are so many other provisions that are there. If you are a discharged, if you are a bankrupt that has not been discharged, there's other provisions like that. If you've been convicted, I'm sure that some of us have gone through those provisions. So if it is constitutional, the Electoral Act cannot take away locus from those candidates. But the locus all of us are as citizens. If not, it would have been easy for all of us to start class action lawsuits against him that the man is not qualified. So they saw into the future, and like a mafia organization, they planted their people appropriately, and in the guise of putting together a new Electoral Act, they took away some pro-people provisions from the previous Electoral Act to protect themselves. But unfortunately, that protection that they thought to afford to themselves has also offered protection to even some of their enemies at a point. It's like a double-edged sword in some areas, but I'm not going to go into that because that's not relevant to this conversation. But what's relevant right now is that his disqualification can't be raised that only someone who participated in the primaries. The Electoral Act is not superior to the Constitution. It's a subsidiary legislation to the Constitution. And when they take it to court and they test it, this is essentially how it is going to play out. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Doja. Thank you for those insights. Sabi, can you go on, please? Sabi, can you hear me?
Ask Doja a question. I don't know which lawyer came to one of our spaces and said that.
Sabi, we did not hear you. Just can you start on fresh, please?
Can you hear me now?
Go on, please. Go on, bro. Yeah,
I'm saying I want to ask Doja a question. I don't know which of the lawyers that came to one of our spaces and said that said that as at the time that the election was conducted, that Tinubu was not qualified to be president.
Savik, we are losing you or we have lost you. We can't hear you, please. If you could rectify your audio, bro. Savik, are you there? All right, I think let's jump up to the next speaker. Ikenna, please, you can speak right now. Please, guys, if you're up here, I don't know if you guys can. Let's try and make this up more orderly, please. Check your. You're not using your earpiece or a Bluetooth speaker. Savik, please. Savik, mute, please. Please, guys, if you're up here, try and check your audio and make sure that you're in the place that is not noisy. Your background is good enough. And finally, you are not using your earpiece or an audio, a Bluetooth speaker, please. Thank you. All right, Savik, if you can mute yourself, if your reception is good enough, please, you have the space. Go on. Savik, go on. Is it just me? David, can you hear me? Phils, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I can hear you, Saddam.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on. Ikenna, you have the space, please. Savik, check your audio and come back.
Yeah, sorry, Saddam. I think I must have requested in error. I was just listening. My hand must have touched the button. You can take me back down to the listening for now. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me up.
Thank God. All right, Tope, you have the space. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Hello.
Go on, we can hear you. Go on. Huh?
Oh, hi. Good evening. Yeah. So I've been listening to what everyone has been saying. I've actually tried arguing this with a couple of people on my timeline, but there's just a lot of false information out there, and people will choose to believe what they choose to believe. On the sorry, there's a noise coming from somewhere. The Nigerian Constitution, Section 137, it clearly states that if a person has a dual citizenship, they cannot run for the office of the president. But then we have people trying to contest it by bringing up other sections of the Constitution, like Section... Just a sec. Section 28 and Section 66 and Section 131. And I've tried explaining that none of this is really applicable. Section 131 states what the qualifications are for president, while Section 137 states what disqualifications are. So people are actually just focusing on Section 131, which just says a person is qualified for election for the office of the president if he is a citizen by birth, and keep saying that because of the fact that he's a citizen by birth, that kind of rules out all of the other criteria. So it's just this back and forth over this over and over again. But I'm glad after listening to Doja, I kind of finally understand that he definitely he definitely was not eligible to contest for the office of the president. My question now is this: the perjury case now that he's got, now we definitely know he's committed perjury by lying on his on the presidential form that he hasn't got a dual citizenship. But this information now is coming after like the court case has already begun, after they have already filed all of the stuff they want to file in court. So my question is this: is it still possible to how will I put it, to chase up, like to sue him of this case of perjury, now that has already gone now that he has already been sued for the other offenses relating to the election fraud. Sorry, I'm not really explaining myself very well, but like, is it still possible to sue him for perjury after they have already filed a suit in court pertaining to election? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Doja, if you want to answer that, please just do that in a minute, please, so we can jump off to the next.
So, with respect to your question, that is it possible to sue him for a case of perjury? I'll take you